You thought you could get rid of me. You thought that you could cancel culture everything. But you can't cancel me. You absolutely can't cancel me. Because this is my world. This is my show. This is our network. And this is the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network. And as we are now less than a few hours away from the start of the NFL season, tonight you're going to hear my predictions and preview the 2025 NFL season. We're underway in college and the new regime in Bowling Green. And we'll talk about week 1 against Lafayette and preview week 2 against the Bearcats of Cincinnati. Speaking of Cincinnati, the Reds, the Guardians, well, the Tigers, doing pretty well. And the farm team down in Toledo, doing well as well. We're 36 days from the puck drop in the NHL. Can't believe it. This is the best time of year. All the sports, all coming together. All my favorites. But you know what my favorite thing to do is? Talk about sports. Right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, either on YouTube, on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network. And for the first time this fall, I say, I love you guys, and welcome in to this edition of All Andy Alfred tonight, right here on your exclusive home for me, and that is with the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us, wherever and whenever you're listening to us. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast tonight, as you can always be part of our show by following us on Twitter. It is at All Andy Alfred. It is at All Andy Alfred, as well as Facebook.com/All Andy Alfred. And welcome to episode 1 of season 17 on this, the 4th day of September 2025. Now, a lot of you, the good listeners of this podcast, before I continue, will say, well, Andy, you did a podcast in the middle of the summer, and that was the first episode of episode 17. We were testing, and we were also looking into what the season's going to entail. And, of course, we've already gone through a week already of college football. We'll get into that here in just a second, but tonight starts the first episodes of All Andy Alfred. Tonight starts the new season. It's the season premiere. This show is going to be going nonstop now. We're going to continue. We got a show tonight, right here on YouTube, on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network. We have a show tomorrow night. Yes, tomorrow night, because it's Friday. It's Falcon Friday. And we're going to preview all the college games, and you'll hear all my predictions for Saturday's slates of college football and Sunday's NFL action. We'll have every show will be a podcast every week. There'll be 2 shows a week. 2 shows a week. One to recap and preview, and then the prediction show on Friday, which is on Facebook Live. So it is truly a pleasure to be with you guys tonight on All Andy Alfred. It's great to be back here in the Man Cave Studios, and it's good to be with you talking about a passion that I love, which is sports, and also hearing what's happening in my everyday life. And as always, you can be a part of our podcast by following us on Twitter. It is at All Andy Alfred. It is at All Andy Alfred, as well as Facebook.com/All Andy Alfred. And we welcome you again into the podcast tonight. Before we continue on, programming note again, we will have a podcast tomorrow night. It will be a Facebook Live edition of All Andy Alfred, as we will preview week 2 of college football. You'll hear my predictions, and we'll also put a bet card together on the podcast. Also, we will also have week 1's predictions of the NFL, besides tonight's game, and we'll get into that game here in just a little bit, as well as hearing my predictions for the upcoming season. But like I said, 2 shows each week, 1 to recap, and then Friday's edition, which will always be a Falcon Friday edition of the podcast. We're going to try to work in doing the podcast at Dwight Perry Stadium, especially when they play at home. because I'm a season ticket holder for the Falcon football team this year. I'm looking forward. I've looked forward to it. Game 1 was fantastic. I'm looking forward to next week with it being homecoming and the big game against Liberty at home, which is a huge game, and I've got that game circled. But in a couple weeks, we got a big game against Central, and then the bye, and then the Battle of I-75 at Bedoit, and we will have full coverage of that right here on All Andy Alfred. We're going to probably have a tailgate for that game, but we're working on the logistics of that, so bear with us. Well, I'll get you more details when that becomes available. And I know that the lights are flickering behind me on the podcast right here. We're working on fixing the lighting situation tonight. You know what? Actually, might as well just do it now. We can turn them off right now, so it's not bothering you, because I know there is some sensitivity people that watch this podcast, and I don't want to bother them and injure them or hurt them when it comes to the situation. But lots to get into. Let's do some housekeeping. Of course, I'm doing really, very well. Of course, you're seeing me tonight without my glasses on. I only need the glasses when I'm staring at a camera or staring at a television or staring at a blue screen for a long period of time. I do not need them tonight, but I probably will need them tonight after watching the football games and everything like that, and watching everything over the weekend. So there's that. Amanda is doing very, very well. The house is doing very, very well. Life in general has been a topsy-turvy for the last few weeks, actually a few months now, and getting the opportunity to go and hang out with my mother and getting to going to see not only her favorite band, but one of my favorite artists this past summer. Getting to see Big Time Rush at DTE was fun. Getting the chance to finally see my mom's favorite singer, Burton Cummings, was absolutely fantastic. So I get to hear him for the first time, which was really, really cool as well. And then we get into, German American Fest was fantastic. I want to give a special shout out to my good friends Derek and Julie. Did a fantastic job. We worked both Saturday and Sunday afternoons. Big crowds on hand all weekend. Big crowds all weekend for the festival. It was truly a pleasure. And again, write us down for another year for us doing it same times. Wife wants to do a night shift. I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I enjoyed the festival. It was fantastic, which led into the following week, which turned into game week for Falcon football, getting the opportunity to go down for my first game as a season ticket holder for the Falcon football team, and it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I have great seats. I'm sitting right between the 20 and 30 yard line on the you would say the west end of the stadium, where the press boxes all are at, right underneath, close to where the call readers are being called at. So it's a good spot. I'll share the picture tonight on our page. You'll see the picture on our thumbnail of where we're sitting at. So that's where I'm going to be at all season. I enjoyed those views. I got a chance to hang out with our good friend Logan Carr, Logie Bear, as he likes to be called. Got a chance to do that with him on Thursday, and it was a fun time with that. Now we get it, and then of course watching the Ohio State game on Saturday, Notre Dame on Sunday, and then of course you have all the wrestling that's happening, of course, too, on the 19th, which is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from tomorrow, it will be Friday Night SmackDown, which is the go-home episode before WrestlePalooza. WWE is not even promoting it here in Toledo, which is surprising as hell that they're not promoting the SmackDown taping in Toledo, which is absolutely amazing. And I'll get into that in just a second, too, because I have a little beef on that. But let's get into it, of course. Like I mentioned before, week 1 of college football has come and passed. And, I have to say, I've never been so excited for college football. And the excitement that it was that we got, of course, is starting off Thursday with Bowling Green, and we'll get to the Bowling Green game here in a second. We'll recap the top 25, first of all. Boise State falling to South Florida 34-7. Illinois on Friday night getting the big win 52-3. You had Ohio State, a big game against Texas, Arch Manning's debut. And I felt like the defense showed up for Ohio State strongly in the game. They absolutely teared the offensive line of Texas apart. And Texas was in the same way. It was a great stalemate game. And if Ohio State didn't have the pickoff, I think this game would have been a lot closer. But Ohio State, a huge win, 14-7, as the third-ranked Buckeyes take down the number one seeded Texas Longhorns at the Shoe. You also had number 2 Penn State, a big win over Nevada, 46-11. Indiana, 20th ranked, wins 27-14 over Old Dominion. In the Aflac kickoff, it was Tennessee 45, Syracuse 26. Georgia, a 45-7 win over Marshall. Alabama, the 8th ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, Roll Tide, Bama, yes ma'am, gets beat by Florida State 31-17. Alabama football is dead. I'm excited for that. I want to see what's going to happen this week with their home opener. They'll probably roll over somebody. 22nd ranked Iowa State, a winner 55-7 over South Dakota. Oregon, a 59-13 win over Montana State. Oklahoma, a 35-3 win over Illinois State. Florida shuts out Long Island 55-0. Texas A&M, a 42-24 win. The big Saturday night game, of course, was the 9th ranked Louisiana State University. The LSU Tigers headed into Death Valley in Clemson. And the Clemson Tigers and LSU, a big win, 17-10. I thought it was a great game. Good stalemate game. It was fantastic. The Michigan Wolverines beat up on New Mexico 34-17. It was a close game going into halftime, and then Michigan just turned it over. And this Underwood kid is a good quarterback. He's a great kid. I don't see Heisman capabilities like a lot of people are seeing. 21st ranked Ole Miss gets a 63-7 win over Georgia State. SMU, a 42-13 win over East Texas A&M. And Arizona State, a 38-19 win over Northern Arizona. You get to Sunday's 2 games. South Carolina winner 24-11 over Virginia Tech. And then Miami, a 27-24 win over Notre Dame. And I have a lot of positives with Notre Dame, but I felt like they collapsed in the second half. Their offensive line looks very, very good. Very, very good. They looked good for the first half, and then all of a sudden they just got tired. They absolutely got tired, and you can't be tired against a Hurricanes team that was that good. That was that good. And my fear is that now we can't lose another game. Notre Dame can't lose another game, because if they lose another game, then it's 2 losses, and I can't see them getting into the playoffs with 2 losses. And we'll get to the Notre Dame schedule. Actually, we'll pull it up right now. Notre Dame's schedule looks like this. Of course, with them being independent, they lost to Miami 27-24 in week 1. They play this week 7:00 kickoff on NBC as they take on the 19th ranked Texas A&M Aggies in South Bend. It's a close game. Notre Dame's favorite 6.5 points in this game. So it's technically 3.5. So it is close to a pickup game when it comes to it. We'll get to the predictions. But then they have Purdue, which probably will be a win at home. At Arkansas, which is a noon kick in Arkansas. That's a circle question mark game. At home against Boise State. It's a close game too, I think, there. But how pathetic Boise looked against South Florida, I don't know if that's for real. NC State, probably a win. USC's rebuilding. That's going to be definitely a win for them. Boston College is a tough opponent for them too. That's at Boston College. I think that's a win. Home to the Navy. That's probably going to be a win. Home to Syracuse, who just absolutely got mauled in week 1. I think that's a win. And then they are at home, on the road at Stanford. They can't lose another game or they're going to be out of the playoffs. And if they lose 2 more games, they're definitely out if they lose 2 more games. But then the consideration is, if they're a 3-loss team, do you put them into the playoffs? I don't think so. Especially if it's a loss to a bad opponent. You lose to Texas A&M, that puts you behind the 8 ball. You're 0-2. You're 1-1 against after Texas A&M. You lose to you lose to Boise State or you lose to Arkansas. Then you got some questions. Then you got some serious questions. But we'll see. We'll see what Notre Dame does. And of course, the pathetic performance against with Bill Belichick in Week 1, playing against TCU, who TCU just absolutely, North Carolina rolled up and got the early 7-0 win, but then after that they just looked pathetic. They honestly looked pathetic, and they lost that game 48-14, which is definitely the age difference between Bill Belichick and his girlfriend. And so, I will say this. I don't think it's going to work in North Carolina with him. I really don't. He's got the NFL mentality, but I just don't see it working in the college game. I really don't. And for me, I think we're seeing the end of his demise. We're seeing the demise of Bill Belichick. And this girlfriend that he's with, her quote-unquote girlfriend and / publicist is just, no. Bill, stick with football. Don't pick the ladies. Feels like she's brainwashing him, plain and simple. Plain and simple. So there's that. Of course, we get now into week 2 of college football. Big slate of games this upcoming week in the college game. There will be 4 games, 5 games tomorrow in college football. 5 games, big games in college football, of course. The one that's coming up. Oh my, our system just lagged here all of a sudden. I'm going to pull it up here for you guys. Here. All right. So, of course, Ohio State having the big game at the Shoot, 3:30 kickoff on Big Ten Network as they're playing Grambling State. That's going to be a wash. That's a wash of a game. Penn State at noon playing FIU. The big game, of course, the big noon game, Iowa State, the in-state rivalry game. That's going to be a huge one to watch. Baylor and SMU is another one Saturday at noon. That's a huge game to watch, too. Your 3:30 window is Oklahoma State at Oregon on CBS. ABC will have Ole Miss and Kentucky. Kentucky coming off the win over the University of Toledo this past week. And we'll get to the MAC recap here in just a second, too. And then you have South Florida and Florida, 4:15. That's a big game there. The nightcap, of course, is 15th ranked Michigan taking on 18th ranked Oklahoma in Norman. 7:30 kick on that one. Herbie on the call for that one. ESPN will have ESPN2 will have Arizona State and Mississippi State at 7:30 in that one. We'll go over that all the games tomorrow and my predictions for the games tomorrow. One game, but we do have games tomorrow that will be on the air as we're doing it. So I will give you my picks for those games right now. It's a slate of 5 games in FBS. 4 games tomorrow on the FBS slate. James Madison goes to Louisville, 7 o'clock kick on ESPN2. Louisville 14.5 point favorite in that game. I'm going to take Louisville in that one. Western Illinois is in Northwestern to battle the Wildcats. Both teams 0-1 looking for their win. I think the Wildcats of Northwestern gets the win on that one. Northern Illinois travels to Maryland. 7:30 kickoff. Maryland 16.5 point favorites in this one. I'm going to take Maryland in that one. But I think Northern Illinois could give Maryland a run a little bit. I will say that. Eastern Washington is at Boise State, 9 o'clock kick for that one. I'm going to take the Broncos. They'll bounce back after that game. But recapping week 1 in the Mid-American Conference, of course, we'll get to the Bowling Green game here in just a second, but I want to go over the full slate. Rutgers, a winner 34-31 over Ohio. And Ohio is a very, very good team this year. I'm very surprised at how good Ohio is, and I'm gonna say this: they're kind of scaring me a little bit. Wyoming, a 10-0 win over Akron at Akron. Minnesota, a 23-10 win over Buffalo, and Wisconsin, a 17-0 win over the Miami Redhawks of Ohio. Western Michigan falls to Michigan State 23-6. Central Michigan, a huge win at San Jose State by the score of 16-14. Purdue a 31-0 thumping of Ball State, the Fighting Football Cardinals. Kent State gets their first win at home in over 2 years. They win 21-17 over Merrimack. Temple a winner 42-10 over UMass, who is now in the Mid-American Conference. Holy Cross loses to Northern Illinois 19-17, and Texas State a 52-27 win over Eastern Michigan. And the big one, of course, was Toledo going into SEC country to take on the Kentucky Wildcats in week 1. And Kentucky just absolutely, it was 10-2 for the majority of this game. 10-2 for the majority of this football game. And then Toledo decided they wanted to play, but Kentucky was right behind them, catching. And Kentucky beats Toledo 24-16, starting Toledo at 0-1 to start the season. But of course, we get into the real team with the start of Eddie George's campaign as the new head coach of our Bowling Green State University Falcons, and the new addition of Pudge the Cat. I absolutely love this guy. I got a chance to see him and get a picture with him as well. I'll share that on our Facebook page. But for the first time in all of football history, in the span of 1 year, Bowling Green takes back the opening kickoff for a touchdown from last season and this season. And they never look back. It was never a question of that they were going to lose. Eddie George earns his first FBS win. Bowling Green wins the football game 26-7, but I have a lot of questions regarding the offensive scheme. Now, Eddie George has been a long time running back player, and he's also been a running back coach. We can't have that happen here. I felt like I was watching my niece and nephews playing NCAA 26, and they were run, and then on a long third down, you knew it was going to be a pass play. If you look at the box score in this game, and I'm going to look at the box score really, the team stats. Bowling Green in total offense had 268 total yards of offense, 109 through the air, 159 on the ground. They had 17 first downs. They were 5 for 13 on third down efficiencies. They were 0 for 1 on fourth down efficiencies. They had 4 penalties for 37 yards. But again, I say it. They go run, and then they pass, and it's a long third down pass play. And I just can't see us continuing that momentum. We can't have it happen. We just can't have it happen. Lafayette, who was in the Patriot League, they were an FCS school, of course, from Eaton, Pennsylvania. The Leopards, 11 first downs. They had 179 yards of total offense, 118 through the air, 61 on the ground. And I like that our defensive line was strong on the run game, but the pass game is still out there, and I just don't like it. 19,328 were in attendance for the game on that. And if you look at the box score for Bowling Green, our quarterback Drew Payne, the transfer from Missouri as well as from Notre Dame, 12 for 18 for 109 yards, no touchdowns, no interception. Carius Roberts, 12 carries, 66 yards. Chris McMillan, 14 carries, 46 yards. Mikael Porter, 2 carries, 10 yards, 1 TD. Cameron Petaway, I like this kid. And I found out he's a cousin of one of my grade school friends. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, it's my friend Sean Petaway's cousin. Oh. 8 carries, 35 yards. He had the running back touchdown to kick the season off. Great. The receiving yards wasn't there. Garcia, 2 catches, 32 yards. Johnson, 1 catch, 22 yards. Finn Hogan, 20 yards. The pass plays were there. But we need to pass more. Our defensive line was good. I just like our defense. Bam Booker, there after the injury he had last year, and me and my wife were there for that game. I just remember him going off of the field. It was a bad sight to see, and he was hurting. And it was a big game for him, big game for the university, and they capitalized on it. But he goes down with the injury, and everybody stuck up to the plate and stepped up. So there's that. But on the other hand, it's Eddie George's first game. It's Lafayette. We don't know what this team looks like. This week, the big test is in front of us. I would like to see us pull the upset in Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio, as our Falcons travel down I-75 to the outskirts of Ohio, right along the border, to take on the Cincinnati Bearcats, who the Bearcats just lost in week 1 to Nebraska at Arrowhead Stadium with that bimbo in the booth with her husband, which I can't have anything nice anymore. I can't have anything nice anymore. I can't enjoy football because she's there. She's a quote-unquote football girl. No, she's not. She's just, anytime she sees a camera, she's going to promote herself. She's publicity. And this whole engagement bull, congratulations. Congratulations. That prenup is going to be something. Just going to say that. Prenup's going to be something. But now I'm hearing that she could be running the Super Bowl halftime show. If that's the case, I'm spending 15 minutes in the toilet. Plain and simple. And everybody knows my feelings about Taylor Swift. I don't like Taylor Swift. I've never liked Taylor Swift. I'm not a fan of her music. Her country stuff was good. I will give you that. Her country stuff was good. But when she switched from country to pop, just because she can make more money out of the situation, it's the same way with Lady Gaga. I like Lady Gaga. She went to Juilliard. She had the choice of either staying with classical music or going to pop to make more money, and because classical music wasn't paying anything. So I understand that. But for Taylor Swift, there's so much money in country music, and there's so much money in the stories of that song. You're writing about your ex and everything like. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And everybody calling her mother's engaged and mother's in love. Give me a break. I can't stand Taylor Swift. I can't. And I'm not looking forward to this NFL season, because anytime the Chiefs are on national television, she's going to be there wearing the rock and flipping around and everything like that. And I just can't. I just can't. I just can't. I'm going to have week 3 in New York against the Giants. Sunday Night Football. Week 8 against our Lions. Anytime that they're on national television, the 425 window. So there's that. There's that. And speaking of which, it's time to talk a little NFL football, of course. We are on the precipice. It is time. Of course, you don't have that much time in your lifetime to enjoy football in this world. As soon as the game starts for a lot of us, the season ends really quickly. And the journey that is to Lombardi in San Francisco will begin tonight, as Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles raise the banner and start the NFL 2025 season against the Dallas Cowboys. And the trade that Micah Parsons going to Green Bay was just for basically a bag of balls and a third rounder was just, I can't believe Jerry pulled that off, did that right before the season starts. And it hurts me because it goes to Green Bay. Now Green Bay is now a front runner to get into the Super Bowl, and Green Bay is this and Green Bay is that. I think going into this season, it's going to be interesting to see if Kansas City is going to be the Kansas City that we've seen the last few years, because I think they're going to take a step back this year. I think they're going to take a big step back this year. I don't think they are going to win that division. I don't see it. Because everybody in that division in the AFC West is better. You have 4 outstanding coaches in that division. Jim Harbaugh. You have, of course, Andy Reid. You have Sean Payton. And you have Pete Carroll. 4 outstanding coaches. 4 Super Bowl coaches in that division. Unbelievable. It's a hard division to pick. Some of these picks are going to be chalk. Some of the picks are going to be, were a hard decision for me. An absolute hard decision. But let's look at the facts here. We know that New Orleans is garbage. We know that this year, Joe Flacco will be the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I don't see Shedeur making a start. I see Dylan Gabriel making the start before Shedeur Sanders. I will say that. I'm hoping for the rookie of the year this year is Harold Fanning Jr. But I just don't think that's going to happen. And I look forward to watching Harold this year. And then you get to my team, which is the Detroit Lions. And the Lions this year, of course, the loss of Ben Johnson, the loss of the defensive and offensive coordinator, but Dan Campbell is still there. And Dan Campbell pulls rabbits out of his hat. I have questions on the defense. We did not look good in the preseason games. Goff is Goff, but you have the targets there. You'll have a Sam Laporta that's very, very healthy. You'll have a healthy defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson back fully at 100% now. You've got a lot of good positives out of Detroit. And that division is pretty much stacked because you have Jordan Love as quarterback with now Micah Parsons in the defensive side. You have J.J. McCarthy, who's going to be making his debut start with Minnesota this year. And then you've got the Bears who could possibly be making a run as well. This division is one of the tough divisions as well. I mean, the NFC North and the AFC West are the 2 toughest divisions in all of the National Football League this year. Absolutely the toughest part of the NFL, the toughest division to pick. So, with that in mind, as you're listening to All Andy Alfred tonight right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Fleeker, however you're listening to us, wherever you're listening to us tonight, thank you for tuning into the podcast as well as watching us right here on youtube.com/the All Andy Alfred. We now turn over for the predictions of the 2025 NFL season. And before we get into that, of course, I'd like to thank our sponsor for tonight's podcast, the Libby Factory Outlet Store in downtown Toledo. Stop down to the Libby Factory Outlet Store. It's football season. Of course, you're going to need those bowls and those cups. Of course, the bowls for the chips and for the salsa and the guacamole as well. And you got to wash it down with beer. So why not stop and get some beer glasses to toast to the new 2025 NFL season? Stop down at the Livy Factory Outlet Store, 205 South Erie Street in the Warehouse District. Open Monday through Friday, 9:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the evening. Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the Farmers Market open from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you'll have many more hours after the market closes to shop at the outlet store, and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. to get your last-minute items before kickoffs on Sunday afternoon. Also find us on our Facebook page, which is Libby Glass Factory Outlet Store. Libby Glass Outlet for more. So Libby Factory Outlet, setting your table right for more than 100 years. It is time for the 2025 NFL predictions. And we're going to go through the divisions first and foremost with the AFC. And we're going to start with the East. I think it's a no-brainer. And we'll go from the bottom up. Of course, with Justin Fields now being the quarterback of the New York Jets and now the new coaching regime in New York, The Jets, I think, are going to have another year of rebuild. I think they're a year or two away from the start of for really making a headway in that division. I see them finishing in fourth with a 4-13 record this year, unfortunately. So my good friend Sean, who's a Jet fan, it's going to be a long year for the Jets. In third, I have the New England Patriots at 6-11. I know my friend Zach and his wife Jess, my sister-in-law, big Patriot fans. I don't see a lot of positives coming out of this season for the Patriots. It's going to be another rebuild for the Patriots. I think a 6-11 mark will be fine with them. I think that's where they'll finish up. They'll finish in third in the division. In second, I have the Miami Dolphins at 7-10. I think with Tua coming back, it's going to be very helpful. But I just don't see anybody competing with what I think is going to be the number one team in the AFC this year, which will be the Buffalo Bills. So Chris Kernan and the Buffalo Bills, you better circle the wagons. A 13-4 record looks like what it's going to be in Buffalo this year. 13-4, Miami 7-10, New England in third at 6-11, and the Jets at 4-13. Let's head to the South. The Titans. This is another team that I think is going to be a rebuild. The loss of Derrick Henry is still going to hurt them a little bit. I have them finishing fourth in the division at a record of 3-14. I just think that they're a ways away. They are a ways away from that. In third, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Jags are going to take a step back. Especially, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence anymore. I think he's a bust. I think he is not the right quarterback in mind. To be honest with you, I have them finishing 4-13, one game ahead of Tennessee in third. I have Indianapolis in second at 7-10. I think a lot of promise out of Indianapolis this season. They're making their headway towards it, but I just don't see them winning the division this year. I think Houston with C.J. Stroud gets the win. They finish 11-6. So I have Houston at 11-6 at first, Indy at 7-10 in second, Jacksonville 4-13, and then Tennessee at 3-14. Now, and by the way, Houston as the 4th seed, Buffalo the number 1 seed. Now these two divisions are where the wild card teams are going to be coming out of, and we will start first and foremost with the AFC West. I said this at the beginning. I think the Chiefs are going to take a step back. 3 consecutive years of getting into the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl, and losing in the Super Bowl. It's going to finally catch up. Patrick Mahomes will still have his magic, but the thing is, this team is a lot older, a lot more grislier, a lot more damage. But I think Pete Carroll and the Raiders finished in fourth at a 4-13 record. I think they continue to move up. It's the first year under Pete Carroll. We got to see what this offense looks like. I finished them at fourth. The 7 seed and the first 7 seed, the last wild card team will be Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert's going to take a big step forward this season. I think the Chargers are going to be very, very good. They have a big game in São Paulo, Brazil on Friday against the Chiefs. I know that field is terrible. I know that stadium is absolutely atrocious. I don't know why the NFL keeps going to Brazil. It's an absolute joke. But I have them finishing 10-7 this season. The Chargers finishing 10-7 as a wild card team as the 7th seed. I have the Kansas City Chiefs in second in the division, the top wild card team at 11-6. 11-6. Of course, Mahomes, Kelsey a lot older. I think the suspension of the kid for 6 games is going to hurt them. But I have a feeling that Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos have got something going on in Denver that nobody's talking about. I think they win the division. I think they finish 12-5. So again, Denver, Kansas City, the Chargers, and then the Raiders. Raiders 4-13, Chargers 10-7, Kansas City 11-6, and the Denver Broncos in first place at 12-5. And that game against Kansas. One game against Kansas City is going to help them win and get into it, which now turns into the AFC North. Now, of course, this division is very, very stacked. Of course, great quarterbacks. You have Aaron Rodgers now with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Lamar Jackson with Baltimore, of course, Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals, and Joe Flacco with the Cleveland Browns. The key to this division is it's anybody's division to mess up. Unfortunately for Browns fans, I have some bad news. I just the schedule looks very, very daunting for the Browns this year, and I have no faith in it. To be honest with you, I have no faith in the Browns this year. I think the magic of Joe Flacco will help you in games, but the problem I have is that the schedule is daunting. Yeah, week 1 against Joe Burrow and the Bengals. You go to Baltimore week 2, play Jordan Love at home against the Packers, and then you come to Detroit to play Jared Goff. You could start the season 0-4, and they're going to be calling for Dylan Gabriel. Then you go to London for a home game against Minnesota, on the road to Pittsburgh, home to the Dolphins. I don't see a win until they play the Patriots or the Jets. In Vegas, at home against the 49ers, against Tennessee, that could be a win. In Chicago against the Bears, at home against Buffalo, Buffalo. Steelers, bang. I look at it and I just don't see a good positive outlook for the Browns this year. I have them finishing 3-14. The 3 wins are as this: the Tennessee game, the Patriots, and the Jets. It's going to be a long year. They'll have 1 win at home. 1 win at home, and that's against Tennessee. They're going to lose to the Bengals, lose to the Packers, lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Niners, and lose to the Steelers at home. Definitely going to lose to the Bills. It's going to be a matter of how many points and how many yards that Josh Allen's going to put up in that game. But 3-14 is where I see the Browns this year. In 4th place. In 3rd, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Aaron Rodgers, a big help to that. TJ Watt is a situation where I don't know what's going to happen with that. This is a Tomlin year. He has to get to the playoffs. I don't see them getting to the playoffs. I really don't. And my fear is that he's going to get let go. And a lot of fans in Pittsburgh are wanting him out. And you look at their schedule, it doesn't look promising for them. Steelers schedule, they start against the Jets, home to the Seahawks, in New England to play the Patriots. They go over to Dublin to play the Vikings, home to the Browns, on the road to the Bengals. Steelers, they play the North this year. They play the Colts, at the Chargers, home to the Bengals, on the road to the Bears, play the Bills, which is a huge game there. Ravens, Dolphins, Lions, and again in Cleveland, and they end with the Ravens. I see the Pittsburgh Steelers at 8-9 this year. I think that's where the Steelers would stand. And then you get to the two teams at the top of the division. The 6th seed in the wild card race is going to be Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I have a lot of faith in the Bengals this year. I think Joey B is ready for this. Jamar Chase is ready for this. I think the Bengals are going to be very, very good this year. I think your team Cassandra's got a very good opportunity to be a surprise and a dark horse to get to Lombardi this year. I really do. I think I have them as a 6th seed. I have them winning 11 games. They're 11-6. But it is Baltimore's division. You know, Derrick Henry, you have the 1-2 combo of Lamar Jackson who can throw and run. You have the running back of Derrick Henry. You have a strong defensive line. When you can you pass, you could run, and you have a great defense, you are officially Lombardi bound. I have the Ravens at 13-4. So again, There is the standings I have in the AFC. In the AFC North, I have Cleveland at 3-14 this year, Pittsburgh at 8-9, Cincinnati at 11-6, and Baltimore at 13-4. The playoff seeding will look like this: Buffalo as the 1 seed, Baltimore the number 2 seed, Denver the 3 seed, and Houston the 4 seed. The 3 wildcard teams are as follows: Kansas City is the top wildcard spot, Cincinnati is the second wildcard spot in the 6th seed, and the Chargers is the 7th seed in the wildcard race. And if you look at it this way, this is how it will shape out. Buffalo will be the number 1 overall seed. They'll have the first round bye. It will be the 2 seed, Baltimore, playing the Chargers. And I think Baltimore will beat the Chargers in week 1 to get past the next round. Denver will then go to Cincinnati, and that's where I think Joey B and the playoff Bengals will provide a win and take down the number 3 seeded Denver Broncos. 4 seed Houston will take on 5 seed Kansas City, which is the top wildcard spot. Kansas City, again, will prove to themselves to beat Houston, which sets up the 5 seed, which will set up Cincinnati versus Buffalo in the AFC divisional round, Baltimore and Kansas City, and I have Baltimore beating Kansas City and Lamar getting revenge because Baltimore, being the 2 seed, will have home field advantage for that game. Baltimore takes down Kansas City. Then you have Buffalo and Cincinnati, and I have Cincinnati falling to the Bills, which sets up a 1-2 matchup in the AFC Championship game between Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills versus Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. And I think Lamar takes the step forward in this, and he gets to San Francisco as the AFC champions. So there's my AFC prediction. Now it's time for the NFC prediction and how I see our Detroit Lions looking. As you're watching and listening to All Andy Alfred tonight right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us, wherever and whenever you're listening to us, thank you so much for tuning in to the show, as well as watching us on YouTube, on youtube.com/allandyalfred. So now it's time for the AFC prediction, of course, and we'll continue on like we were talking about the top. We'll start off in the NFC East, and the defending champions will continue their defense, I think, in the division, as I think it will be the Dallas Cowboys. After the Parsons trade, I think it's just they're absolutely atrocious. They have nothing to look forward to this season. I think it is going to be a rebuild, and I'm going to sit there and laugh at my coworker Amber and all the Cowboy fans watching their team absolutely implode this year. And their schedule is tough as nails because of how they are shaped up. Eagles, Giants, Bears, they can go 1-2 in the first start or 2-1 in the possible start. Packers at home Sunday night, and then they're at the Jets, Panthers. The Commanders are very, very good with Jaden Daniels this year. It's going to be a long year for Cowboy fans. I have the Cowboys at 5-12 this year. 5 wins, 12 losses. It's going to be a rough year in Jerry World. In third, I like Jackson Dart. I like the Giants this year. I like what's shaping up with the Giants, but I just don't think they get over the hump. I think they're a year away. So, Dave, I think the Giants are close, but they're not going to get there as of yet. They need one more year and a couple more key pieces, and maybe, and just maybe, it could be a 3-teamer in the division to get to to have 3 teams in that division to make the playoffs. But this year, I have the Giants finishing at 6-11 this year. The second place finisher in the East will be the top overall wild card spot. Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders absolutely surprised me last year, especially the upsetting win against Detroit, and then continuing that momentum into the playoff run after the Lions beat down. I have the Commanders at 10-7. But the Eagles will continue their defense. I think with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni running the ship, I can't bet against the Eagles. And I think they're the number one seed in the NFC as a whole, and the number one in the division. I have the Eagles at 14-3 overall. In the South, I said this before, New Orleans is absolutely garbage. This is going to be a bad year for New Orleans. I know friends that are New Orleans fans. It's going to be a rough year. I think they are going to be one of those teams that could possibly make the run for 0-17, but not this year. I have them winning only 2 football games this year. I have them 2-15. It's a rough year for New Orleans. New Orleans finishes in 4th in the South. Third will be Atlanta. It will be a tie for second, really, but Atlanta will have the 3rd spot at 8-9. I see some promise in Atlanta, but I just don't see them making over the hump. Carolina has the same route as well, too, at 8-9. The division's run by Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield could be the outstanding, right now, as the dark horse MVP candidate. I don't have him. He's one of my 3 for my MVP candidate choices. And you've got to get to at least 10 wins to do it. I think that Tampa does get to 10 wins. They get to 11 wins. I think they finish 11-6 overall in the division and win the division and be the 4th seed in the NFC. We get to the West. Arizona, Kyler Murray, 7-10. That's where I see Arizona. I don't see any promise with Arizona this year. Same way with Seattle. I don't feel promising with Seattle as well, too. I think the two games that everybody is going to be talking about will be between the Rams and the 49ers. San Francisco is going to be very, very good this year. Brock Purdy, you can't count him out. He's not Mr. Irrelevant anymore, in my opinion. I like Brock Purdy. I think he's going to be surprisingly good this year. I think the 49ers defense is a lot stronger, and I think they're a lot better. I think Kittle's going to be there, which is going to be fantastic. I have San Francisco as a wild card spot and finishing 10-7, and Matthew Stafford in the LA Rams with Puka Nacua. I hate to do it, but I'm going to have to do it. The Rams will win that division, but it's between San Francisco and LA. Now, if Stafford gets hurt in this season, he's not at 100%. If he gets hurt and he's done for the season, San Francisco's got the division. But I think the Rams, if you get a fully healthy Matthew Stafford, win that division with a 12-5 record. 12-5 sounds like the record. Which now, and they will be the 3 seed in the NFC. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about the NFC North. This was a tough decision to make in this division. And I'm not playing Homer on this. You already know where my allegiances lie. I'm wearing the blue right now. But let's get into it. The Ben Johnson hire from Detroit to Chicago was a big move. The Bears are very, very good this year. I am not counting the Bears out a lot in this season. I think the Bears are going to have a very, very good season. It's tough with this division this year because you're playing the AFC North. So there's games that you're going to win, definitely. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, possibly Cincinnati, depending on who you're playing. You've got easy wins in that department. But I think the Bears are getting there. But they're not there yet. I have the Bears finishing in 4th in the NFC North at 5-12. They need a couple more key pieces to rebuild, but they're on the precipice of doing something that could be done. Now, 3rd place was a tough choice. you have three good teams with three stellar, great quarterbacks. Great quarterbacks. Goff, Love, McCarthy. McCarthy starting his first full season in the National Football League after the injury from last year. The Micah Parsons trade helped out the Packers tremendously, but I think there's going to be a lot of unresolved, problems in Green Bay because of it. It's going to affect them on the field. I really think it is. I have the Packers finishing in third in the division and not making the playoffs. They will finish 9-8 in the division, which then sets up this 6th overall wild card spot, the 6th seed. Second in the division will be J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. I like Minnesota. I think they're very, very good. I think they'll split the series with Chicago and with Detroit. I don't like that Christmas Day game against Detroit this year. It scares me a little bit, especially that late in the season where the Lions need wins. Might need wins for that division, but I have Minnesota finishing in second in the division, the 6th seed in the wild card spot. I think Riverboat, Dan Campbell, and the Lions with Jared Goff, Ahmad St. Brown. I think the defense is a lot better now with Aiden Hutchinson fully healthy back. I like this Lions team, and I know that the defensive coordinators are gone, but Dan Campbell's still there. And I like the fact that this team, even though we have some problems on the defensive side of the ball, I would like us to figure out what we're going to do safety-wise. Situation is key, but I still have us winning the division. I think division-wise for the Lions is there, and I have them finishing 13-4 this season with the second overall seed in the NFC division. So again, Bears in fourth at 5-12, Green Bay in third at 9-8. Both teams not making the playoffs. The Vikings at 10-7, making the wild card spot as the 6th seed, and the Detroit Lions with a 13-4 record this year finishes in second place. So again, your top winner in the division is the Eagles at 14-3. Detroit finishes the 2nd seed at 13-4. The Rams at 12-5, and Tampa at 11-6. The 5th seed is Washington at 10-7. You have Minnesota at 10-7 as the 6th seed, and San Francisco as the 7th seed at 10-7 and all. So what does that mean for playoff wise? So the Rams would be the 3 seed. They would play the 6th seed Minnesota, since that would be the case. I think the Rams take down Minnesota at SoFi. You have Detroit hosting San Francisco, and I have Detroit beating San Francisco for a second time in the season. It's going to be hard to beat a team twice in the season, but Detroit has done it before. Tampa and Washington is the surprise. Tampa, the 4 seed, Washington, the 5 seed. I think Jaden Daniels gets the win over Tampa and provides himself for that one. So then that means that Washington, the 5 seed, would have to go to Philadelphia to play because they were the lower seed. Washington would be the 5 seed playing Philadelphia as the 1 seed. I think Philly beats Daniels again for the 3rd time in a row. For a 2nd time in a row, I have Philadelphia beating Washington. Rams and Detroit. Detroit, the home team in that one. I have the Lions in a close one, beating the Rams, which sets up Detroit versus Philadelphia in Philadelphia. And the magic returns to Detroit, and Detroit gets to the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history. I have Detroit as the NFC champions. Now, you're going to say to me, Andy, that's a homer pick. You're a Lions fan all the time. The pieces are there. It's all put together. So, it sets up for the Super Bowl in San Francisco the Baltimore Ravens versus the Detroit Lions. Who do I have raising Lombardi? I think it will be a very good game. Very, very good game. Forward down the field, a Lions team that will not yield. And when the blue and silver wave, stand and cheer the brave. Rah, rah, rah. Yes, I have the Detroit Lions winning the Super Bowl this year. I think they put it together. I have it now on record. I have it put together that the Lions will win Lombardi in San Francisco, and they will lift Lombardi. And it will be coming down to either a field goal or a 2-point game. I think Lamar does a fantastic job in the game, but I think Jared Goff, Ahmad St. Brown, and the defense of Aiden Hutchinson and the Detroit Lions get the win in Santa Clara against the Baltimore Ravens. My MVP pick for this year will be Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow will have a breakout year. I think he's going to have a fantastic year this season. It was hard for me to go against Baltimore and how if it was me, so I have two choices. My heart and my gut will tell me it's Baltimore and Detroit. I still have Detroit as my what in my mind I think it could be Detroit versus Cincinnati. I could see that happening. I think Kansas City, like I said, will take the step back. Kansas City will take the step back. And I think Joe Burrow will be there, but I have Baltimore. My set pick will be Baltimore versus Detroit in the Super Bowl. Detroit winning the Super Bowl. My MVP is Joe Burrow. My rookie of the year this year, and I hope it becomes to fruition, is Harold Fanning Jr. I hope Harold has him and Joe Flacco. What I've heard in camp are really connecting, and he's dropping the ball right on him. I like hearing that he could have breakout games and it could be another Stafford Calvin Johnson situation where both players are putting up big numbers, but the team isn't connecting on the field. That's what I'm thinking it's going to be this year with Cleveland. But I have Harold Fanning Jr. as my rookie of the year this year. So there's that. The 2025 picks of the NFL season. Choose wisely, my friends. Remember to gamble responsibly. Always gamble what your heart is. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visiting gambling.org. gamblinghelp.org. And really quickly, I don't have it off the top of my head. The Lions, I have them, like I said, at 13 wins. The set total was at 10.5 wins by Vegas odds. I think they're going to beat that really, really easily. Really, really easily. So that is the NFL predictions right here on All Andy Alfred, of course. And looking at the Lions' schedule, it is tough for them to go 13-4, but I think that they can do it. I think they win against Green Bay this week, close enough, even though they are not favored. Green Bay is a 1.5-point favorite. I think Detroit pulls it out. They beat the Bears week 2. Monday Night Football in Baltimore, I think that's their first loss. At home against the Browns, that's a win. They go to Cincinnati, that's a win. That's 5 wins there. But then the tough stretch right here. Go to Kansas City, Sunday Night Football. Chiefs are a 3-point favorite. It's a real pick'em game. I think Detroit could beat Kansas City there. At home against Tampa Bay, I think they get the job done against Tampa Bay, but that's Monday Night Football. I'm worried about that one. The first game against Minnesota, I think that's a win there. They lose their game against the Commanders there. That's 2. Play the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. I think that's a loss. That's the 3rd loss there. At home against the Giants, that's a win. Thanksgiving Day against Green Bay, they finally break the curse, and I think that they win that game. They play the Cowboys on the following Thursday on Thursday Night Football. They get a win there. They go out to L.A., play the Rams. I think they win there. They win against the Steelers. Christmas Day against the Vikings, it's the toss-up game. I think that they could win that game or lose that game, depending if they get any playoff spots. And then you have the Bears at the end of the season in Soldier. I think they win that game. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 and 4. That's where I see it. 13 and 4 is where I see the Lions this season. As you're watching and listening to All Andy Alfred tonight right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us tonight, wherever and whenever you're listening to us. Thank you so much for tuning in, as well as watching us on youtube.com/AllAndyAlfred. Of course, big game. We're coming down to the stretch, of course, for the Major League Baseball. Of course, the Tigers continuing their route in the American League Central right now, as they are running away with the division right now, as they are up 10 games on Kansas City at 81-60. Kansas City 70-69. The Guardians are 69-69, 10.5 games out. The Twins 62-77, 18 games out. And the White Sox 52-88, 28.5 games out of first place. If the playoffs started today overall, Detroit would, let's see here. Detroit would be the 2nd seed, so they would have to play in the wild card round. Toronto would be the top seed, as they're leading in the American League East, and then the West would be Houston. Wild card looks like this. Top wild card teams are the Yankees, Red Sox, and Mariners, with the Rangers a game and a half out, Kansas City 2.5 games out, Tampa 2.5 games out, and Cleveland 3 games out of a wild card spot. Of course, in the senior circuit, National League Central, the Brew Crew up at the top at 86-55. Cubs are 80-60, 5.5 games out. The Reds are at 500 at 70-70, 15.5 games out. I don't think they're going to catch the Brewers or the Cubs. St. Louis is 70-71, 16 games out. In Pittsburgh, 63-77, 2.5 games out of first place. For me, it's surprising how bad the Rockies were this year. They're 39-101. They are 39.5 games out of first place. They were eliminated from the playoffs. And it's been a dog race between the Dodgers and the Padres all season in the West. And in the East, you have the Phillies at the top spot, with the Mets 6 games out of a first place spot. You look at their wild card in the National League when it comes to baseball in the senior circuit. The Cubs top wild card spot, Padres 2nd, Mets are in 3rd. San Francisco's 4 games out of a wild card spot, and the Reds are 5 games out of a wild card spot at 70-70. The Mets are 75-65 overall, and then it's Arizona and then St. Louis at 5.5, and then it just breaks off the rest of the way. So there's that. Tigers continue the homestand. They will now play 3 games against the Pale Hose of the Southsiders of the Chicago White Sox before they head to the Bronx to take on the New York Yankees in a 3-game series, and then they'll head down to Miami to battle the Marlins for 3, and then a huge series with the Guardians, as they'll play 3 against the Guardians, 3 against the Braves, then go to Cleveland for 3 against the Guardians, and end the season with 3 games in Boston to take on the Red Sox. For the Guardians, by the way, going forward for the rest of the season, the Guardians' schedule looks like this for September. They are going to be in Tampa tonight at George S. Steinbrenner's Field, where the Rays are playing at for a 4-game series. It'll be 4 games against the Rays, then 3 at home against 4 against Kansas City, then 3 against the White Sox before heading to Detroit to take on the Tigers for 3, then a doubleheader, 4 games in 3 days against the Twins before they come back to Progressive Field to take on 3 games against the Tigers and finishing the season against 3 games against the Texas Rangers. So there's all the baseball stuff for you guys as well. NHL news and notes to pass along to you. We are, like I said, 36 days from the start of the NHL season. First preseason game is going to be on the 20th of September as Dallas is hosting St. Louis. Some news and notes around the National Hockey League. Of course, we're getting some estimations of what the teams are going to look like in the U.S. and Canada for this upcoming Winter Olympics. We'll see how that's going to go. San Jose approves the deal to keep the San Jose Sharks in San Jose until 2051. Wow. The NHL expedited the CBA playoff cap, so that means it's going to be some cap hits, and it's going to be great for Vegas, Tampa, and Florida. They're going to have to pay. The salary cap rule 1 is several changes to the league collective bargaining agreement, which will fast track for the season. CBA ends on the 15th of 2026. The new agreement, which the NHL and PA announced in July, has a 4-year term. NHL general managers were briefed on the CBA rules at their meetings in Detroit this week. Source by ESPN says salary cap rules for the playoff addresses an ongoing concerns for some players and general managers as teams using long-term injuries or long LTIRs rules to ice rosters would help have been well over the regular season upper salary cap. Previously, there was no salary cap in the Stanley Cup playoffs, allowing teams to put back players in the LTIR at the end of the regular season for game 1 of the playoffs after already using the open salary cap to add more talent. So they are not going to have the LTIRs. I love it. I love it. Stick it right up the butt, Florida. Right there. Tonight, by the way, in Columbus, the Clippers are having Blue Jacket night. The Clippers are wearing special jerseys tonight at Huntington Park. If you're going down to the ballpark, which the game will start here in about 10 or 15 minutes or so from right now as we're doing the podcast, enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the nice weather. Tell Bob McKellican and Andy Alfred said hello. So there's that. Wrestling-wise, I want to talk a little bit about that. Of course, the storylines, of course, but the big one to me, and I'll get to that more on Friday than anything else. Actually, we'll get more to the wrestling side on Friday because I've taken enough of your time. We're over our time limit as it is right now. So on Friday's show, which will be a Facebook Live show, we will preview Week 2 of the NFL slate. Also, we'll dive into the Week 1 of the NFL slate and so much more. So that's all the time I have for you guys tonight right here on Only the Alfred. Remember, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. And by the way, taking the Eagles tonight to beat Dallas. And to the teams you root for at home and to my teams, go Jackets! Go Walleye! Go Tigers! Go Guards! Go Reds! And go Hens! And victory is sweetest when you have tasted defeat. Have a great night, everybody. And I will talk to you tomorrow night for our Falcon Friday edition of All Andy Alfred. Love you. Talk to you then.